We went into the weekend with the Cleveland Browns and their fan base being very excited, anticipating rookies reporting to training camp on Friday, July 18th, veterans to follow, and the 2025 season to kick off. Well, we've had a little snag. Browns rookie running back Quinshon Judkins was arrested over the weekend in Florida. We're going to talk about that, all the things surrounding it. Browns 3D on the OBR begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate everybody that comes to the OBR daily for their favorite written content. Joins us every evening at 6 p.m. for the OBR streaming network. Tonight, following us, you'll have Jacob Roche and Sam Penix breaking down a little film. Jam-packed week as we get ready for the beginning of training camp. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. Every mandatory mini camp, the final one in the NFL, they usually all end the same. Head coach, coaches, get everybody together, break them down, tell the guys, hey, enjoy your last little bit of free time, family, friends, and most importantly, be smart, be safe, be careful. Unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns, there is an issue currently with rookie running back Quinshon Judkins. And the charges against him, look, I'm just going to tell you straight up. I have two daughters, so the charges against him I take very seriously. But when you talk about things of this nature, you have to use a little, maybe decorum, and tread lightly because everybody is assumed innocent until proven guilty. What we know is Quinshon Judkins and a female companion arrived in Florida, looks like for a little R&R, on July 7th. Apparently transitioning from flight to getting their luggage to rental vehicle and departing for where they were going to be housed during their time in Florida. There is an alleged assault incident between Judkins and the companion. Judkins and the companion continued their time in Florida until Saturday morning when Quinshon Judkins was confronted by local authorities and then subsequently placed under arrest. He has been charged with misdemeanor domestic violence. Now, keep in mind, every state is different. So how a charge could sound to, obviously, you folks in Ohio, as opposed to a charge that's, being handed out in Florida. The verbiage is, certainly could be different. What constitutes what charge, of course. Yes, the Browns did go through something similar last year, obviously, pretty much right around this time. And if anybody remembers, of course, that involved Mike Hall. So, and, Mike Hall went down the road, flat out the charges, but still received a 5-game suspension from the NFL for, conduct. Now, certainly in the infancy as where this is all going to end up for Quinshon Judkins, he posted bond Sunday morning for $2,500. As for where Quinshon Judkins is currently, or the companion, there's no news to that point. Quinshon Judkins' attorney has spoken, obviously trying to, prop up his client. I'm not saying he's telling the truth or, look, we don't know any of this. Obviously, this isn't a really, really good situation for the Cleveland Browns right now. After the 3-14 season and, just everything that went along with it, you were hoping at least, you kind of keep things clean here this offseason. as you got into training camp and started things up. So not an ideal situation. I see a lot of people trying to give general manager Andrew Berry a hard time over this selection. Look, you do your due diligence. You have your scouts, you have your personnel, you have security that reach out and try to get as much information on said player as possible. And all the reports coming back for Quinshon Judkins were glowing. Of course, you know, there was no, draft chatter of, character history. And, I believe we are firmly to the point in the NFL draft process that, we usually know these things going into it. So, all intents and purposes, this looks like an isolated incident. Again, I am not poo pooing this in any way whatsoever. These charges, the charge itself is serious. You know what I'm saying? You just, you don't get physical with members of the opposite sex if you're a man. It's just something you do not do. How it all going to work out? Obviously, it's going to be some time before any of us know all that. Quinshon Judkins currently is the Cleveland Browns' only rookie without a contract. And the contract itself, and, if you were following this or you're not, there are only two first round picks to this point from the 2025 NFL draft class. I'm sorry, two second round picks from the 2025 NFL draft class who currently are signed. And the reason that those gentlemen are probably signed is because those gentlemen were giving guaranteed contracts. One of those players, of course, being Cleveland Browns' other second round draft choice, Carson Swessinger. So if you were one of the other 30 2025 NFL second round picks, you'd be a fool probably to not have your agency fight as hard as they possibly can to get that entire contract guaranteed. If it's, once you get a couple of these contracts done, then, now all of a sudden, it starts to slowly become a precedent. And, there's always pushback from the league. And, don't worry, the league is always up to something when it comes to contracts. So, don't necessarily think that this is, where the league is, trying to look out for best interests or teams. There's a lot of things going on there, of course. But the problem is if now you start getting to the point where second round picks are getting fully guaranteed contracts, you guys see where this goes from here, right? Now all of a sudden, third round picks are going to start to ask for fully guaranteed contracts. It's the snowball that goes down the hill and eventually becomes obviously it's a whether or not how this stands for the NFL, whether you truly understand whether teams in the league are wanting this or not. That's information certainly being kept from us. But Judkins to this point has no contract. So, and for, any hopes of maybe getting a guaranteed contract, you have to believe that's in a really, really bad scenario right now for Quinshon Judkins. I don't necessarily think these charges are, something that's going to, end his career, but it certainly puts him in no position, no bargaining position whatsoever here, gives him no leverage here anyway whatsoever. Does Quinshon Judkins show up with the rest of the rookie class on Friday? I don't know. I mean, this is on its face a misdemeanor charge. Every state, any charge, just because it's a charge in Ohio, New Jersey, Las Vegas, or Florida, doesn't mean it is a universal punishment type of thing throughout all 50 states in the United States of America. Now, ideally, what I think would happen is that maybe Quinshon Judkins does show up to the building in Berea. The Browns could just say, "Hey, you're here," do whatever they need to do, maybe as far as checking them in, whatever, and maybe just suggest that Quinshon Judkins goes home to have a better idea or a better understanding of where his standing is legally, which will certainly affect or not affect his availability to the Cleveland Browns. And again, Andrew Berry, and I get it, you know, It's certainly not a good look, but at the time of the selection and the subsequent, I guess we're talking now almost 3 months since the time of the selection, there hadn't been a peep. Quinshon Judkins, for all we can tell, been doing everything that was asked of him, and, there had been no off-field issues in his brief time here with the Cleveland Browns. This, however, though, you know, there's no way around it. It's a problem. It's just not a good thing to have right now. And, Judkins is in this position where, most likely there's going to be an emergency break put on him beginning his career, his practices with the rest of the team when the rookies report on Friday and the veterans report after the weekend. As far as the running back position overall for the Cleveland Browns, this is certainly something that, you know, is throwing a monkey wrench into the works, of course. Judkins and Dylan Sampson, both drafted second round, fourth round, respectively, certainly felt like what was going to be the future of the Cleveland Browns running back room. The Browns in the odd position, with Nick Chubb, and the way all of that obviously certainly worked out for Nick Chubb and him moving on and eventually landing with the Houston Texans. The Browns were looking to begin anew in the running back room, bringing in obviously these younger players, trying to hopefully put more on the youth movement here for this team overall. And now you're looking at a running back room consisting maybe again, maybe it's really tough to talk in positives, obviously, with this situation where now it is Jerome Ford is maybe your top back and Dylan Sampson is your number two back. You know, this could lead to Browns bringing in another running back. You don't want to burn guys out in training camp, and so they got to get somebody in there to get some work if Quinshon Judkins is unable to do so. There certainly is the possibility of, however this plays out or, however this goes or ends up, for Mike Hall last year, Mike Hall ended up, pleading down. And I believe for Mike Hall, he ended up pleading down to something more of the disorderly conduct type of charge. But it still ended up with Mike Hall getting a, 5-week, 5-game suspension from the NFL, for his conduct. It's certainly not good when your second round pick 2 years in a row is going through this, of course. And, again, the Browns, it's not difficult to get the information for the Cleveland Browns for players who played at Ohio State. I mean, it's, the Browns obviously have a relationship. There's certainly several Ohio State Buckeyes currently on the Cleveland Browns roster. So, it wouldn't have been that hard. And I'm sure it obviously was done, during the process that, the Browns reached out to the guys at Ohio State and, da 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 da. Let's talk about your kids. Da 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 da. No, I don't need to know about a 40 time. I don't need to know about his vertical jump. I've seen the tape. What kind of kid is he? For those, I guess you guys, some of you just assume that, if Andrew Berry was told, oh, the kid is Satan. He's, a wild animal. He's uncontrollable. I think for some of you guys in regards to Andrew Berry, you think like he says, okay, sign me up. But again, all the information on character-wise for Quinshon Judkins was positive. So, I mean, this truly feels like it is an isolated incident. One bad moment should never define any human being. But again, there's, legitimacy to these charges. And this is just not, a look that the team certainly needs. It's certainly not a look that Quinshon Judkins needs right now for a team, trying to paint the overall picture of a 3-14 franchise in 2024. It's just not a great scenario right now. Um, it's yeah, it's a pain that it's 2 guys 2 years in a row. There's no question about it. I am sure nobody in that building is thrilled. But, just as Mike Hall is Mike Hall and Quinshon Judkins is Quinshon Judkins, it's not a, direct correlation to the fact that the 2 of them went to Ohio State or I mean, it's bad freaking luck if you're Andrew Brown. Andrew Berry. It's bad stinking luck if you're the Cleveland Browns. So I'm sure this is going to, get more run. It's going to certainly somehow, some way going to play its legal course. And we all know the steps that it could go. I mean, it could be something where all of a sudden, the victim doesn't want to speak about it anymore. It could be something, of course, where Quinshon Judkins ends up pleading to a charge or pleading down to a lesser charge, or it could be something that, you know, eventually ends up, in a courtroom. I mean, I mean, sadly, we've all been through this before in regards to the Cleveland Browns. We are football fans. We understand that, we all kind of do have a little courtroom knowledge from being sports fans, unfortunately. It's not something the Cleveland Browns needed by any means whatsoever. And, I'm sure at what point in time we ever do hear from Quinshon Judkins, there certainly will be an apology, hopefully to the victim, hopefully to the franchise, hopefully to the fan base, hopefully to his teammates. Just a terrible, terrible wet blanket on, what was, starting to ramp up as excitement for Cleveland Browns 2026 training camp. So, we're all in a wait and see approach here to see what happens. There are certainly legal discipline that can come the way for Quinshon Judkins. There is certainly NFL discipline that can come the way for Quinshon Judkins. But in a nutshell, what do we know to this point? What do we know to this point is on July 7th, something happened somewhere between the time Quinshon Judkins and his acquaintance got off the plane and arrived to where they were going to stay. And then on Saturday morning, the 12th, Quinshon Judkins was placed under arrest for whatever incident it was that took place a week ago today. So this is again where we're at, and this is where it's going to play out, and we'll just have to, monitor and watch, and see the way this all goes. Um, you know, I still think Quinshon Judkins, if the charges are the way they are, a misdemeanor, obviously it is a terrible look. No man should be involved in, charges like this anyway whatsoever. I do not think it necessarily breaks unless something huge comes out and changes this, for the worse for Quinshon Judkins. I don't know that this necessarily changes, you know, as far as whether or not Quinshon Judkins is eventually a Cleveland Brown, but it is certainly not a way to start a career. Absolutely in no way, certainly whatsoever. Now, of course, trying to get excited here about, the week ahead. And, today should have been, defensive line preview. And, we'll get to that. We have plenty of shows left here this week. We can talk about the DN position. We can certainly talk about the defensive tackle position. We can talk about the linebackers, the corners, and the safeties. But this is the important topic for now. And, whenever whatever type of news comes out right now for Browns fans or any fan of their favorite NFL team, usually breaking news in regards to a player from your favorite NFL team right around this time, it usually ain't ever good. It's just the fact and it's just the fact and the truth of the matter. But the rookies, whether Judkins is part of it or not, will be back in Berea on Friday. Shador, Dillon, Mason Graham, Carson Swessinger, Al Fannin, Dylan Sampson. All these guys are headed, and of course, a whole bunch of undrafted free agents, and of course, a bunch of guys that went through some rookie mini camps and got the opportunity and the invitation to join the Cleveland Browns for training camp. So again, and I think everybody was kind of there when this news came rolling out on Saturday. You know, trying to enjoy your summer, trying to start the juices flowing for another football season. and certainly kind of felt like when Lucy took the football out from Charlie Brown and he, basically fell flat on his back after another kick attempt. As far as the overall possibilities for this team for this season and what they were capable of, Quinshon Judkins, for all intents and factors, looked like he was most likely going to be, the lead back for this running back room. We have no idea where that is at now, of course. For Jerome Ford, who, has been a better than perceived running back for the Cleveland Browns to this point. Right now, it's opens up an opportunity, and we've talked about this before, and we mentioned about Jerome Ford maybe being in a really not ideal situation in regards to this is a free agent season for him and trying to hopefully hone in a second contract. If the Browns are playing today, it really looks like Jerome Ford is maybe in a pretty good opportunity in a a more a better profitability of a position in his free agent year. But overall, like, do I think that this, if you think the Browns can be competitive and play well early on, you know, we haven't seen Quinshon Judkins do anything yet for the Cleveland Browns, so it's really hard to say, oh, well, this is a significant loss. And this is kind of why I'm saying that I think the Browns might just say, hey, let's get in here. Let's get you, just get you in the building, have you reporting to training camp, and then maybe tell you it's best if you go home and we're going to just wait and see how this legal process works out. And then they focus on Jerome Ford and they focus on Dylan Sampson and, maybe bring in another running back. And then they start working towards, you know, creating, sorry, and getting ready. The iced coffee's hitting better some in these afternoons than the Coke. I probably should have gone that route. But if you think the Browns can be competitive early, I don't think it's necessarily, was going to be because of Quinshon Judkins' legs. It was because whatever quarterback the Cleveland Browns ultimately decided on hit early with Judy, with Njoku, Tillman, Deontay Johnson. I think this team is looking to probably run the ball more often. And I think Quinshon Judkins was certainly part of that plan. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? The old line, right? Well, unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns, this is the first punch in the mouth of the 2025 season. We're going to get, of course, the rookies, like I said, on Friday. The veterans will come on in after the weekend. You know, the beginning of training camp could possibly not go very well because of the Browns, unfortunately, forever having issues getting out of news in the wrong way. And this is just yet another example of it. So, certainly not an ideal situation by any means whatsoever. And it's just something as an organization you don't want your name tied to. Obviously, there's a quarterback they're basically disassociating themselves with. A lot of it was play. Most of it was because of play, but certainly it was because, you were taking a black eye for a guy who wasn't playing anyway. Judkins, again, in limbo here right now as far as Cleveland Browns are concerned. And, so many second round picks trying to secure that guaranteed contract. Heck, you might get 25, you might get 26, you might get 30, 31 who get the guaranteed contract from being drafted in the second round of the 2025 NFL draft. Hard time believing right now that Quinshon Judkins is going to get that. And hey, even if it turned out he was innocent. You cannot get yourself into these situations. And, d- and again, with trying to show the situation the respect and the decorum it deserves, it looks like there was, judging by the way everything was written, there was some sort of physicality. Can't have it. Cannot have it in any way whatsoever. So, we'll continue through the week here. We'll talk some defensive line, of course. We'll talk to linebackers. We'll talk to secondary. Um, I believe next Monday night, and I'm pretty sure we've got this in stone now. And we want to do this for you guys because we do these shows where we try to kind of get everybody involved, Pete Smith and Brad Ward and, Mike Keefe, of course, and, Casey Kinnaman, and we won't have any spam involved. You know, those shows are a lot of fun for us to do. Obviously, they're great activity, great from all of you guys who jump in here, when we do it live with the comments and all that stuff. So I believe that is, what we are setting up for on that would be 1 week from today on Monday night. We have a lot of fun with them. We do, you know, and yeah, it's work, sure, but I mean, it's fun work. You know what I'm saying? We all kind of do a lot of things here individually, and certainly we do some things collectively here at the OBR. But kind of getting boys' night out, so to speak, where we all kind of just get up here and throw out our thoughts and have a little fun and jab at each other and make poor Casey Kinnaman sick because he ate spam. Oof, still, Casey, you're a trooper for that, by the way. Because look, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, everybody's sports fans. You know, certainly here, huge, huge football fans. And you have to be a huge, huge football fan if the team you openly root for is the Cleveland Browns. And, I'm now here with you all. This is now my ninth season covering this team. So we all wear this quote unquote black eye together, I guess I would say. This badge of, I love this team, but it won't love me back embarrassment. Not necessarily sure the next time we are going to hear from Kevin Stefanski or hear from General Manager Andrew Berry. Stefanski, I believe you would think it's as early as Friday. I don't know if something's going to change where they're going to, speak earlier and maybe address this. So that way, when training camp does start on Friday, the focus can just be on training camp and training camp alone. It gets a lot of, publicity and look, it should, it, you know, and, I don't want to hear, oh, well, it puts the Browns in a negative way. Well, one of your players gets involved in an incident like this, it is negative. It's just no other way around it. It's negative. It's bad. You do not want your players involved with this. This is not something this team needs. It's not something this franchise needs. It's just all around bad, 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 bad. That's it. So, you know, I cannot wait to get back to coverage tomorrow, and hopefully it's nothing but talking about, finishing the training camp previews in regards to the defensive side of the ball. I've always hated doing these types of episodes and talking about, players' issues off the field, something I don't ever want to talk about. And, having to, come out here and speak like I'm working for court TV when the truth of the matter is, I am someone who speaks about the Cleveland Browns and, does videos covering the Cleveland Browns and give my opinions on it. It's really, again, difficult to speak on these things because yes, it's news. B, it needs to be spoken about. C, it deserves respect. And D, it's always that difficulty and that fine line of, talking about allegations where you need to protect certainly the victim in the way you speak, and you certainly need to protect the potential defendant in this because, again, we live in a world where you are presumed innocent until you are proved guilty. Enough of that for now. We will certainly, in later videos this week, update as information comes our way. We appreciate all of you who come on out to the OBR every single day. You guys who come on out for your favorite Cleveland Browns content in the written form, or you come on out every night at 6 p.m. for Browns 3D streaming network. The OBR streaming network can be found, of course, on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR. Of course, over on Twitch. Make sure you subscribe over on Twitch as well to the OBR. Again, stick around. Jacob and Sam will be here with some film at 7 p.m. So again, make sure you stick around. Make sure you subscribe. Leave some comments. We are coming so close to that 10,000 subscriber number, which we are really proud of, and we could not be more thankful to all of you for as well. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network, and we will talk to y'all tomorrow.